You put energy into a rubber band. Now that you stretch it apart, it's got energy in it. We do the same
Put
thing
the
with a
energy into the
magnet.
magnet.
We do this. That's how you make a magnet. You got to put energy into it. You can't
Yeah.
just. Well, I mean, there's magnetite,
Yeah.
but when we
Like you
make
can't just
magnet,
dig a deep hole and find a magnet.
yeah, you can magnetite, but we can also make a magnet out of just some bullshit metal, and we got to put energy into it.
Jeremy, I'm really sorry.
Calling a
But it is
magnet though.
hang on,
No,
Jeremy. I'm really
Rob, switch your mic, bro. Switch your mic, please,
sorry.
bro. Please. Can you? Can you do it?
Okay, please, Jeremy. I'm really sorry about my mic. What gives magnetite its energy?
Ooh, good
I
question.
don't know. I don't know.
If you're
Definitely
saying
not close.
magnetism is energy, how does the magnetite naturally get its power?
I said magnets have there's energy in a magnet.
Yeah. Magnetite.
Yeah. How?
Here's another example. Why do crystals
don't-
vibrate?
I don't know how magnetite got its energy. No, I
Why do
don't know.
crystals vibrate? They have innate vibration to them.
Interesting.
So what they appear to be doing is attuning into some kind of medium or motion that's persistent. That it's currently submerged in, right?
Yo, crystals are crazy, bro. The piezoelectric effect. That
Right.
shit is nuts.
So it's like stored potential energy.
No, it's not stored. Well, the thing is, it's stored in the empty space of our world. Like all the stuff that fills in between atoms has its own energy and it has its own motion, and it seems to be vibrating and holding everything together. It's kind of like a fabric.
What do you call the stuff in between atoms?
Ether.
Ether. Got it. Right. Roger that.
And there's three types of things that there's ferromagnetic, which is mostly magnets, paramagnetic, and diamagnetic. And it doesn't have to be a magnet. It could be like crystals and other substances that will attract or repel each other or
Yeah, that's why I
repel.
said, like, I think Jeremy's referring to a permanent magnet, though, like when he asked that question.
Biblically, from a biblical point of view, I don't have a problem with the term nothing existing, but
I didn't want to be the one to say
That's
it,
the
but
most interesting answer I've ever heard.
yeah, this is God territory now.
well, I mean, that's what
Hold on,
ether is.
What did you say, Vax? You said you don't have a problem with nothing existing?
Well, yeah, I mean, God himself says he hung the earth on nothing. He stretched out the north over the empty space and hangeth the earth upon nothing.
Yeah,
He stretches out the north over empty space. Yeah.
You haven't read
Well,
that.
yeah, but he's not saying there's
If that's
waters
the
there. He's saying
conclusion,
nothing.
no,
If
he
that's the
literally says
conclusion-
waters. The earth wasn't made until the third day. He hovered over the waters.
He stretches out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. I mean, that's literally what the Bible says.
And that's literally what your translation says.
Well, which translation do you want? Do you want King James, New King James, New American Standard Bible, or NSAB 1995? I mean,
The actual word and the context is just saying that there wasn't any other land or anything previously there as a foundation. Like he created the land, the earth, and there were waters already there because it wasn't made until the third day.
well, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like a B, an upside down E, what looks like an L and an I. Hebrew.
Yeah, and there's a bottomless pit underneath the earth. Meaning, like, how do you put earth? How do you put earth there if there's a bottomless pit underneath it? That's the point he's making. That it defies our understanding of how he could physically do it.
I think he's
that's God.
misappropriating the word nothing instead of no thing. And
It's referencing the idea of the bottomless
distinct
pit.
difference between those two.
Well, no
It's making
thing
the
would be
point that
two
like
words,
the creator
right?
is so powerful, he somehow built where we live over a bottomless pit.
Sure, but also it kind of seems like you guys with the ether take power, like the creator can't do nothing without ether, and that the ether and creator cannot be separated. That I don't really jive with that either.
Well, I didn't necessarily directly ever say that.
I'm
But
not
I mean,
saying
I
you
guess
did.
you could imply that, and I wouldn't say you're necessarily incorrect.
Well,
I
I would
would.
argue or posit that the creator and the ether are actually part of the same thing, because I have to figure out, like, where does intelligence originate from, and if there's this thing moving that literally assembles and holds things in place, it would be the most intelligent thing that offers and rains its intelligence on everything else.
Yeah.
I just don't like saying
follow.
God has to have ether to do anything. That seems a little sketchy to me.
What if God
Like,
is
if ether
ether?
doesn't,
What if ether is God?
that's a big claim. That's why a lot of flat earthers have problems with ether.
It wasn't a claim.
But
He
if
asked you a
God and ether are
question.
an
No, it's
inseparable thing,
it's a query.
that's a big matzo ball.
He didn't ask
Yeah.
you a
Oh,
question.
for sure.
And he asked a question. You didn't make a claim.
I'm
Good
Like,
just
this is the
point.
thing, okay? You're the cult of FED has gone
Here we
so
go.
hard.
Yeah. Ad homs,
Gone
Witsit
so.
thinks.
How's it
You
an
guys
ad
are
hom? If I'm
cultists.
not,
You're
bro,
saying
you're
I'm part of a
interrupting. Why are you
cult
interrupting me so much?
because you just claimed that I'm part of a cult, and I don't really appreciate that.
Are
I
you
haven't
part
said
of
that about
FED?
you. So FED's a cult. Why is it a cult?
Yes. It's
Oof.
factually.
Because instead of saying ping pong golf ball, we say gas pressure can't exist
Boom,
without a
boom.
container, and that
No,
gas
that's
moves in
not
all
why
directions.
you're just not even letting the other person talk. This is exactly the cult type of behavior I'm talking
Okay,
about.
there we go again.
Exactly.
All
Like that's what a cult does. They don't let the other people speak.
right.
They don't let alternative ideas be heard. Whenever someone challenges their ideas, they immediately all bombard them, attack them,
The
and
irony.
censor them. That is literally what a cult does, bro. They don't let their ideas be challenged in public.
Nathan,
The
please close
irony.
that.
Yeah. Let's have the back and forth.
Still waiting for the part where I'm in a cult and how I'm a cult member.
Who
That's a
cares?
little
Just
outrageous.
understand whether you are or
Who
not.
cares?
It's irrelevant.
Well,
So you
I
guys
was
accuse
making a
me of being
point
a
that was
cultist.
relevant, but he's censoring me though.
Yeah. Just have the back and forth, gentlemen.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay.
Go ahead and explain to me how I'm a cult member.
It isn't about
Do
that. I'm just saying all I
do
did was say
you
this is the
disagree with
problem with
and
the cult of was
it's
what
it,
I
it's
actually
it,
was saying was, okay,
it's
dude,
it
why
just
does everyone in this room think that they run me or something? In what world do you guys think that you have so much juice that another person can't speak, that you get to just talk all over them, interrupt them, not let them talk? Can someone enlighten me? What was it that
It's
occurred that
Discord.
made you think that you get to just yeah, and this Discord doesn't let you do that?
Well, it's happening now.
Well, it's going to
Well,
stop happening right now.
yeah.
We're going to
Fair
go one
enough.
at a time, or people are going to start getting muted. So let's respect each other. Go ahead, Witsit, and then you're next, buddy. Don't interrupt, please.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll be
I
quiet.
get that it was an inflammatory statement, whatever, but I'm just going to say it again. The cult of FED has staked its flag so hard in the scripts against the ether that they cannot allow the conversation to truly and naturally progress or for those ideas to be challenged, right? They have to eliminate the possibility of them being shown after all these years that their position is illogical or wrong. And that is a very dangerous place to be. That is what we see from like heliocentric globers a lot, right? Like I'm happy for my ideas to be challenged because if I'm wrong about something, I would rather know than to live in delusion for years. And this is a perfect example of the downward bias conversation we had the other day. Oh, there is no downward bias because gas goes in all directions. That's not a good argument at all because there can be a downward bias, but whatever causes an object to go up or in other directions can be stronger. It can be a stronger force and it'll overpower that downward bias, just like a ping pong ball in air has a tendency to go down, a preferred direction of down, a downward bias because it's more dense in the air. But if I introduce acoustic levitation or manipulate the medium with sound waves, it'll go up. So the downward bias didn't disappear. The downward bias due to density didn't disappear once I made the ping pong ball go up, right? I just overpowered it with an additional force. Now that point right there is one of the staples of, say, the FED script. So they can never let that conversation take place. Same thing goes with the ether, because when the argument's actually presented, that's like, okay, there's no such thing as a perfect vacuum chamber, and I'm almost done and I'll stop. There's no such thing as a perfect vacuum chamber. There's still gas pressure in a vacuum. So what's in between the gas molecules? Something or nothing, right? And obviously nothing cannot exist if something's there. And then QE said space. I said, what is space? He said length, width, height. I'm like, oh, so math. So math in between it. and then they had to immediately mute me, right? That's the point, though, is that like if your position is so fragile that it requires the prevention of it being challenged or honest back and forth with the ideas, then it's very cultish.
Hey, let him respond a full minute, no interruptions. Same thing. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. So first off, and I will be clear, the whole you and Witsit, the whole thing that's been going on for the past couple of weeks or a few months. I mean, I know you guys have had beef for like 2 years now, but I relatively tune all that out. I find it extremely boring, and then it just turns into Brian and AI arguing with each other and having show trials, and so this whole thing has been a bit of a mess. But let me ask you, what's the do clouds have a downward bias when you go outside and look at a cloud? Do they have a downward bias or not? And if they don't, what's preventing them from having a downward bias?
That was totally like a non sequitur, man. You address the points there with us.
I just had to throw that out because I got a almost 2-year-old that's being a little nightmare today. Now she thinks it's cool to just rip her diaper off and stuff, and so no, but I mean, the crux of this whole thing's about if everything has a downward bias, or if not everything has a downward bias. And instead of saying ping pong golf ball, that's how you disprove gravity, you could just simply say that not everything has a downward bias, and I understand how that's a cult argument.
Well, there's just a buoyant relationship. I mean, as far as we need to know, because we can't escape the frame where there isn't some kind of sorting. So you may think you're going down, but also things are sorting. So you're sorting downwards.
You know, the best thing I've ever heard in all this atomic talk and all this physics talk is everything desires to be at rest. That's one of the best things I've ever heard. Like everything wants to be in a state of less movement.
I agree. Now, the fact that everything wants to be at rest, if I have a coffee cup sitting on a counter, is that coffee cup like showing a downward bias while it's sitting still on a counter, not moving? Or is it just at rest on the counter?
It's showing the want to be at rest.
Sure. What about clouds when they're floating above you? You know, like when you go outside and you look at a cloud, you go, oh, that one looks like a dragon, and that one looks like a glass of milk. Like, are those clouds showing a downward bias, or are the clouds just kind of hanging out where they're hanging out and just slowly moving along?
Sure. They tend to collapse.
Now, what about gas? Does gas want to be at rest, or does gas have to always move?
Gas wants to rise.
Gas expands in all
what do you mean it wants to rise? No, I don't think that's. Yeah.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
I think it has its place as well, like everything else. It wants to be in its place, right? So think about it.
Well, to say gas wants to rise
has its place. Water has its place.
Sure.
Everything below water has its place. Everything above water has its place, right?
I like that take.
You know, if gas doesn't, hold on real quick. If gas doesn't have a downward bias, why is there more gas at the bottom?
Oh my! See, Jeremy, this is why I get confused with you. You just said you've been in this for 8 years, and you're asking a silly question like that.
And I've been using my head this whole time. If gas doesn't have a downward bias, why is there more at the bottom?
What are you talking
because it's where it's
about?
being produced.
Jeremy, where does gas come from?
No, even in a propane container, there's more gas. There's more gas pressure at the bottom of the propane container than at the top.
You mean the propane, the liquid? Wait a second. You mean the liquid propane? The liquid that's in the container?
Liquid propane. It gasifies under that pressure when you release it.
Well,
there's a lot of reasons.
So let's say if you have a volume, let's say the same exact volume of water in a container that is sideways, and then you have a same volume of water in a container that is standing straight up. Which one has more pressure The volume on the one that
Depends on
is sideways or the one that is up at the bottom? Which one has more pressure at the bottom? You googling
which
it?
one has more pressure at the bottom. That would be the sideways one because there's more
No, it would be
volume pressing down on it from sideways.
no. It's the one that's standing
Mhm.
straight up. The one it
He's
all has to
Googling.
do with depth. Same thing with the gas molecules or water. I
Bro,
mean, if
Nathan,
you take water and you put it the doesn't matter how much water it is, but the more depth it has, the more pressure it accumulates.
yeah, Nathan Oakley will never teach them the gas pressure gradient why it is there. He deflect that question how badly because he don't have any answer.
Well, there's
Nathan
multiple
Oakley.
reasons. Sorry,
It's
there's
because it's
multiple reasons why you could say the gradient's there. You could say that's why all the gas can't create. I've actually used that one myself. You could also say it's a temperature thing, which I've also used myself. However, if you put it in a box, if you just you're in air, right, and then you just seal a box up, like that gradient's going to just go away now, and it's going to be equal in all
No,
directions. Yeah, so you can't
bro.
use the gas of getting created because now there's no gas getting created inside the box, so that one's out.
Okay, can I get one
no.
bro? Like, if you're talking about second law of thermodynamics, like gas always seek the equilibrium. So why there is a gas pressure gradient? And if you're for
Because
just yeah,
because
because
there's
what?
depth, man. That's why there's a gas gradient because there's a lot of molecule of gases, and the more mass per volume,
Look at
the
sulfur hexafluoride.
yeah, the more mass per
That gas
volume, the
wants to go
more
down.
yeah, I guess
Oh, sorry, Elbow.
the more
What more
I
mass
might have
math?
been
per,
lagging.
per
Okay, so your whole
I'm just
mantra is
And
saying.
let
like
Elbow. Hold on,
just,
let Elbow go, and then I want to get in.
okay,
Yeah, the
just a
more
second, bro.
mass
Like
per
high
vo-
pressure goes to low pressure, right? High pressure goes to low pressure. So if there is a low pressure up in the sky, then why the high pressure gas is not going there? That's the question.
It literally is. Where do you think the gas in that lower area came from? Like, this is the thing. I don't understand this argument. Okay, gas gets produced at ground level. It gets produced by phytoplankton. It comes out of holes in the ground. Comes from
Bro,
the
my
ocean. It
question
comes from plants, and it moves up. When you're at the top of Mount Everest, what in that region is producing gas? Also,
Yeah, but
it's not
we
violating the second. It's not violating the second law of thermodynamics because gas is in that available area. And just because the pressure is different doesn't mean that the volume is different. You can have
yeah.
okay. I
different
hear.
pressures with gas and have this and not change the volume.
Hold on, Elbow. I hear you, but if you make a closed container, like if you're just in air and you make a closed container and you seal that up inside the box, but there'll still be a gradient in there. That
Okay,
one's
yeah,
out.
I've heard
Like
this.
that's not
What's the
that can't
pressure
be air.
difference? What's the pressure difference, Jeremy? Because you know how many times I've heard Globers claim that there's a gradient. If you have a solid canister of just oxygen, and it's let's just say it's not liquid, it's just oxygen in a container. What's the pressure difference between the bottom and top of the container? I've never been able to get someone to give me an actual number that's been measured and proven to exist.
There'll definitely
I
be a
mean, you
pressure
can download
difference
that.
because of depth, man. Yeah, I need to read go
What
You
would
read
the,
can
on
download.
special. I need to
what
go
would the,
read on specific gravity, man.
what the fuck?
You can
Gravity.
get your physics toolbox. Hold on, man. You can get the physics toolbox app on your phone, and you can measure just at the floor in your house and the ceiling. You can just raise your arm all the way down, all the way up. You can measure the difference. Now, if you take the box, if you suddenly sealed your house up completely airtight, you think that gradient's just gonna just disappear like that, and it's gonna be all even everywhere now?
What if you open up all your windows and doors, Jeremy, or just remove a wall?
But we're talking about sealing it up. Not that's the opposite of what I said. I'm talking about if you seal it up so that there's no gas being introduced or leaving into the system, would that gradient suddenly just disappear?
What would the gradient be? I keep hearing these fantastical claims that
I
there's
don't have the
these
numbers. You can
gradients.
measure it
Nobody,
yourself.
Jeremy, nobody has the numbers.
I can
Nobody
download the
has the
physics
numbers for
toolbox
what the
and
gas
measure it
for
right
what
now. I can download the physics toolbox and measure it right now. Do you want me to do that?
the. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so Vackwax, do you know like Nathan Oakley just have two arguments. One is Earth is measured flat and another is gas pressure container. and both are hell wrong. And he's one of the cause like flat earthers are getting mocked by globe earthers because
And
they say,
you're
"My
wrong if
God,
you think he's wrong.
Wait a second. The only flat earthers being mocked by Globers are the people that went to Antarctica. It's not my camp that's being mocked. Oh, look, they measured the Earth flat with aviation sextants and mariners. No one's mocking that argument. Nobody touches that argument. Nobody wants to get
Okay,
in depth with that argument because it literally obliterates the globe anyway.
okay,
Same with the second law
give,
of thermodynamics.
give,
The only people that are
give me one
getting
minute.
mocked are certain factions, and it's definitely not that one.
Okay, bro, give me just a minute. Okay, so Nathan Oakley, like Earth is measured flat. What he say? Like he have never took any altitude of a star in his life. So if he took, he
Do
know,
you know
but he
that?
don't know.
Do you know
Yeah,
that?
he
Do
never.
you know that for a fact?
Hey,
Yeah, he never. He
I think a
never
problem
like
here, man.
used to.
You said that there's certain factions. That's the thing, man. Like you said that there's beef between between Nathan and Witsit. There isn't beef. He is creating a faction. He is creating beef. Witsit just ignores him, just like he does with all
See,
the other trolls. You're buying into this whole narrative of separation, man. Like
oh,
this
no,
is the problem.
Bro, I
Like
know that. I
we've
know
I
that.
figured
first.
out not only the
They did.
philosophy but the logical deduction of these circumstances, and we've moved on. We've progressed into this position that we're currently at. It's not like we're being divided. We've just
Bro,
come to this conclusion. You
Nathan
have
Oakley
been
is a.
Jude, stop talking. You have allowed yourself to be divided. Okay, if you don't
Oh
understand
no,
something, that's fine. Doesn't mean you need to pick a side out of ignorance.
no. First off, the whole beef thing's been going on.
No,
When I first
he
discovered,
has no beef. Witsit has no beef. Nathan will make 20 videos about Witsit. He doesn't even pay attention. I
Yeah,
don't
and
have
he,
that's
anything
more Kiwi than Nathan, but
I don't have anything against Kiwi or Nathan. It's they have a problem with us, and I'm not even sure if it's a
Ether.
real problem. I think they're acting. I think they're being emotional for the sake of brainwashing people who are actually their audience.
Oh, see this again now. So now just more brainwashing and we're cultists because we don't
Well,
subscribe to Ether. That
I
you
just said
guys.
what I think. I just said what I think.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's cool. See, I do want to speak to the whole beef thing because I was really shocked because I got into this arena very late 2018, maybe super early 2019. I can't quite remember. Now, granted, I've heard about FE for a couple of years before that, but I was too busy looking at Jade Helm and all this other nonsense crap and Alex Jonesy stuff. I'm like, oh, Flat Earth, that's kind of silly. And, like when you first stumble upon Flat Earth, the problem that I had is I didn't understand what they meant by it, you know. But then once I started looking into it and stuff, and of course, the very first flat earthers I ever came across, I think, was I want to say Dave Weiss was up there. I remember Dave. I thought Dave Weiss and Jaron were the ultimate top dog, biggest flat earthers, and then I found out that there was a thing called Globe Busters, and I'm like, oh, cool. There's a whole panel. There's like 10 different people, and Mark Sargent, of course. I always forget about Mark Sargent. And I'm like, oh, cool. There's a bunch of them. It's not just one or two Looney Tunes. There's like 15 people, and they all have pretty convincing things to say. Stuff that today would not like. I would not become a flat earther by those arguments. Like when they start going off about how it's impossible to fly from Australia to South Africa and this and that and the third. Those are all terrible arguments now because those are the arguments that are getting made fun of.
Dude, there's
So
so many terrible arguments coming out of some of them guys, bro. It's crazy. Anyways,
right, but when you're
I measured the pressure. Hold on, I measured the pressure. I'll post it
okay,
in the live stream chat right now. So if you were to
what's the
suddenly
pressure
see it,
difference?
if you were to suddenly, I'll post it right now. Obviously, the higher number was at my floor. I also have a graph of when I lifted it up. Right when I lifted it up, that happened. So if you were to magically seal your house up so that none of the gases were being created, would that number magically just all of a sudden be even everywhere vertically?
Hold on, I want to see. Let me get. Oh, I'm on the wrong server. Hold on. Live stream text. Okay, so what are these numbers? 101,295.65. 101,298.03 is the very bottom number. And your little white squiggly line goes up to 101,306.68.
Yeah, the bigger number,
Mhm.
is when I'm at the floor, and the higher number, or sorry, the higher numbers when I'm at the floor, the lower numbers when I raise up. There's a gradient in my house right now.
What's the PS like? Do you have it in PSIs or all just these, 8-digit numbers?
I think it's Pascals. I mean, do you want me to do the
Okay.
conversion for you?
Yeah, just I mean, I could well, just it's simple. I don't like. Oh yeah, okay, Jeremy. Sorry, I'll do it myself in a minute. Damn it! Now I lost my train of thought. Okay. So I started seeing Glowbusters and who's that chick? Karen B and Crow 777, this and that. And I kept hearing about FED. And in fact, I think I first actually saw FED's content from Dave Weiss's stupid app. I'm like, oh, this guy's great because he was tearing into some Globers and like pretty much making them cry. And I'm like, oh, this is different because normally we're the ones getting made fun of, and this group over here is, snapping people's wigs off and stuff. Like, oh, this is cool. I can get behind that. I mean, similar to my personality anyway. I tend to be kind of a high-strung person just naturally.
No shit.
So I'm like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, cool. These guys seem familiar to me, so. But then all of a sudden I'm watching Glowbusters one day and everyone's making fun of a grocery delivery guy. And I'm like, the fuck? I'm like, what are they talking about? And then they said, I'm like,
This
oh my,
is all,
and then it
dude.
dawned on me. And
What's
then
the
it dawned
topic
on
here?
me. I'm talking about the beef. It dawned on me that Glowbusters and FED didn't like each Glowbusters, yeah, Ballbusters is QE. So like the first time I realized there was a rift, it was Glowbusters insulting the FED panel. And this was like shit going on almost 5 years ago.
Oh no, you missed it. Nathan was a special guest on Glowbusters, and Nathan essentially started a big fight over nothing, like during the show, and rage quit.
Well, like science proving or not proving?
I don't remember what the argument was, but it was a forced. It was basically like a forced dispute, and ever since then he had just like declared war on Glowbusters, and it just became this big supposed rift that didn't really exist.
Hmm.
Let me ask you, man. The reason I brought up brainwashing is because I'm assuming you're a conspiracy theorist at the very least. You've watched CNN. They've basically taken like full segments and clipped people to the point where they can just make up any story about them, right? Well, this is precisely what QE, Quantum Eraser does. Precisely what Nathan does. So if you really think that they're walking in truth, why would they have to do something like that? Whenever they're attacking Austin, they're specifically just using the smallest bits of sound bites just to straw man his position and just kind of rage at him. And why would anybody approve of that behavior anyway? It sounds like you've been kind of like conditioned for this to be normalized. Like people don't act like that. And we certainly don't act like that. So there is no rift. You've bought into like this dichotomy that doesn't exist, man. Like we're cool over here.
I don't know. I was called a cult member a few minutes ago, and that I'm just and saying that gas pressure moves freely in all directions is a better argument than ping pong golf ball.
Well, and you know why? It's because you were talking to the guy they were attacking when this guy hadn't done anything to them.
Okay, if you're not a cult member, do you disagree with Nathan in any argument?
Which argument would I disagree with?
Is there any? Like, I can disagree with any flat earth or some argument. Do you disagree, Nathan, on any argument on flat earth or global?
Which argument would be valid to not agree with?
He's asking
like
you.
I don't
relative density causing gravity.
Who claims relative density causes gravity on FED? Who even claims gravity? Are you talking about Newtonian or Einsteinian or quantum gravity? Like, what are you talking about? Gravity's not a thing. I'm sitting
Wait.
outside
I
smoking a
thought
cigarette.
that is what Nathan Oakley claimed.
No, I'm sitting outside
Oh,
smoking a
yeah,
cigarette. I'm
no.
seeing the smoke from my cigarette blowing in
Oh.
all directions, not having a directional bias. So where's the gravity? You know, it's kind of like when Newton saw the apple fall off the tree. What if the tree was on fire and the apple fell and he saw the smoke go up?
Well, let me ask you this,
What would
man.
he say then?
You're looking at the smoke, right? The smoke goes up because it's hot, but inherently it's ash, and when it cools off, it will fall. Okay, so you're not like taking into account like the dynamic situation happening here, just to even like consider that observation.
I've never seen smoke rain down. I've seen the
Well, it's
particles
'cause-
inside the smoke rain down.
Because yeah, because smoke is, if it's smoke, it's because it was hot.
It behaves the exact same way as
Hold on. The smoke from liquid nitrogen goes down.
Right. Like, have you ever smoked a cigarette and burned the
smoke?
back of your throat? I mean, it's hot. It's going to go up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but liquid nitrogen, is that smoke? Or is that just steam? Well, not steam. I
look,
guess that's not the right word either.
I don't know. It may be some other classification, but do you understand the points? And do you understand the point I said about the cult thing? I mean, you kind of moved past it, and that's fine. I don't really want to dwell on it, but we're just really trying to engage with you. There's no, there's no like beef. There's no like this team, that team. Like, we're just trying to talk about stuff.
Yeah. I
Cool,
just I don't understand the argument, or I don't understand saying how gas
And that's
pressure in all
fine.
directions is a cult argument. That doesn't register with me because it's a. Like, for instance, if you have a balloon, pump out all the air around the balloon, and that balloon could be filled with helium, it could be filled with sewer gas. It doesn't matter. The balloon falls down to the bottom of the tank because there's nothing supporting the balloon. And you pump out more and more, and that balloon starts expanding, and the balloon ruptures. Where does that gas go once that balloon ruptures inside that vacuum chamber? What does it do? It fills the space. It goes in all directions. It's not shooting
well,
to go
sure.
back.
Well, sure, but then
Right.
dynamically, where would it rest?
Gas
once
doesn't
the
rest.
heat, once
Gas
the
is
heat
always
has
moving.
extinguished, and once it's found its buoyant, relative buoyancy, where does it go? It depends on the material. It depends on the gas or whatever it is. Like, there's a whole myriad of reasons why it would go up, down, stay right there, expand or not expand. So what they've done is they've convinced you of a simplification of like some kind of like very specific scenario, and they're like, look at that.
It's not a very specific scenario. It's how gas behaves.
Well, no
If
matter
I have
what
a
gas it
canister
is,
of
it's not
gas,
gonna. No matter what
Go on.
gas it is, it's not gonna just stay right there.
Yeah, it'll go up,
That's the
it'll
whole
go
point.
down, it'll spread out, it'll it'll mix with the air. It depends on what your what it is,
Right, gas doesn't ever just.
No.
gas
Stop.
doesn't stop moving.
You just say gas like it is one thing. Gas is oversimplifying. You can have a gas go up, you can have a gas go down. You can have a gas get hot and go up and then go down. You can have a gas that just literally blends into the existing gas.
Yeah,
No, I
and
think
then
if a
I
gas
think you
gets
could
hot
keep sulfur
and goes up,
hexafluoride into a fish. I think you could keep sulfur hexafluoride with no top. If you had a tall enough fish tank, super tall fish tank, you could
it would
keep
never
all
leave.
this. You could
It
keep
would
all the
leave.
sulfur hexafluoride in that tank. If you had
Forever.
like, guys, please, man, I'm almost done. In a super tall fish tank, if you kept the top super cold, like you kept it super cold, you could probably just leave that sulfur hexafluoride in there forever. As long as you kept the
Hey,
top
that's a big
super cold.
claim, Jeremy. As long as we like enacted something to the canister that it's in. Never mind that for the sulfur hexafluoride to be pressurized, it needs to be in a container.
Yeah, but I'm saying it doesn't need to be sealed on the top, is what I'm saying. I think
Well,
you
why
could keep
can't you
all
just
the.
have sulfur hexafluoride without the aquarium, Jeremy? Then what happens?
Yeah, then it's going to go all over. But I'm saying if you do have container walls, I do think you could have gas inside those container walls forever without an actual top on it.
Yeah, as long as you're constantly keeping the top at a super cold temperature and you don't allow anybody in there and you don't let the air in the room mix up. No, that's not true. Because if that was the case, you could have a tinfoil boat float on it forever.
This conversation
How
is
come the
getting
tinfoil boat doesn't float on the sulfur hexafluoride forever? Because the sulfur hexafluoride that the boat's floating on gets inside the tinfoil that it's floating above. How does the
Because
sulfur
they don't.
hexafluoride
Because they're
get
not
inside
doing
the
it like I
tinfoil?
said. Because they're
Because they're
not doing
not
it
like
like I said. They're not having a super tall fish tank with the cold on the top. If
How are you gonna keep
that
it
was the
cold?
case, I think you would have the thing. I think you would have the tinfoil boat float forever.
so. In
Yeah,
order to keep
how will you
sulfur,
keep it cold though on top?
well,
Like
look what
air
he's saying. In order to keep
conditioners or
Dude, shut up,
what are those
Vax.
little
Dude.
air conditioner,
plates?
wouldn't that cause the air around it to
Jeez,
move
Vax.
around?
You know how to shut up, dude? He's trying to speak.
Oh, I
Yeah,
mean,
you
this
could do it.
Vax has been taking us on a dozy do all morning, bro. So some other nice Glover came in here asking to ask some questions, and we're just gonna do this with Vax all morning, or what?
Oh,
I mean,
that's
we
the guy
can
I'm
move
supposed to
on
do
if
a
you guys
one-on-one
want.
with. I
That's
forgot.
fair.
No, I volunteered to go do a one-on-one with him because he sounded like he was new.
All
You
right.
should do
Well,
that.
whoever talks, just please allow someone to complete their sentence at the very least.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm bad about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So Jeremy, how do
Elbow.
you keep it cold?
You could. There's a multitude of ways you could keep it cold. You know what I'm saying? There's those plates that get hot on one side, cold on the other. You could have ACs blowing on the glass. There's lots of ways to keep it cold.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have AC blowing on the glass, it's gonna mix the air on the top,
No,
which
on the
is definitely
outside.
gotta mix, right? So, but it's gonna move the air around it, which is in that case gonna mix with the air inside the tank.
Elbow, there's a fish tank. Hold on, man. There's a fish tank going up 5 miles, and you got an air conditioner 1
Oh my
mile down. Like
god,
that ain't
5
gonna
mile
mix
fish
none of the. Guys, please, we gotta
Dude, what the
stop the
fuck,
over talking.
Vax?
We gotta stop the over talking. If you have a 5 mile high fish tank and you have an AC at 1 mile up, that's not gonna mix none of the air up in the tank. I hear what you were saying. Thought I was just blowing in the thing. Yeah, that would be an issue, but you know what I'm saying? You could have a freezer. You could cut the back out of a freezer and put refrigerator freezers all the way. Like, I don't know, bro. There's so many ways you could do it.
All right, we just need to build a 5 mile tall fish tank and then put air conditioning coils around it,
Yeah,
and
but
that will
then the
keep.
problem also becomes, what about the wind that's up there?
Well, no, you have to
The
construct a
wind,
5 mile
yeah,
tall building too.
yeah. If you had wind gusts going in there, then yeah, that'd be an issue. But I mean, let's say you brought it all the way up to where there's like little to no wind. How many miles up you got to go?
Not sure. Never been up that high.
I mean, we got high altitude balloons that go up 100,000 feet. I don't think is there a lot of wind up there, or that would probably drop some of the other air. You're right, though. That would drop some of the other air into the tank with the sulfur hexafluoride. That boat probably wouldn't float forever.
You mean the sulfur hexafluoride would get inside the boat? How would it do that? Is it just going to jump in it? Oh, it's because sulfur hexafluoride's moving. Okay. You do know what
Either way,
precipitation
there's
is, right?
definitely a downward bias here on Earth.
For gas.
I would say yes for gas. I showed you my barometer thing. Also, for almost every solid object there is. I think
Every
every solid
solid
object
object?
has a downward bias.
It has to do with that. It has nothing to do with downward biases. The more things accumulate on top of it, the more pressure there is.
Oh my god. Somebody said
What
something
do you mean,
about
oh my god?
This is stupid. Somebody said something
Yeah,
about
you're
heating up
fucking
gas.
stupid, dude. Get this dude out of here. Because all he's
Somebody
supposed to do is fucking be like his
Guys,
whole shit.
Be
is
fast,
just-
let them speak. How fucking you saying, although, goddamn, bro. Shut
Guys, hold on, man.
Dude, like his
Let's all
whole
relax.
attitude is just fucking it's FED rage, bro. Like, all he-
Just hold on, guys, please. Let's just switch it up. We can just switch it up. That's fine.
What?
We're
Yeah, well, somebody said.
we're going to a new
Somebody said.
topic. Hold on. We're going to a new topic. You're not picking it. I'm sorry. I'm going to pick it.
This
You
would be
guys want to
wonderful.
switch it up?
all I gotta say, if y'all don't understand that depth causes more pressure, go fucking read specific gravity, bro.
What is specific gravity?
All right, you want to stay on this? That's fine.
It's something that it's about the density relationship, and you don't know about it. Figure that out. Shit, holy crap.
But it's gravity. It's
Oh my god.
a force acting on things to pull them down, or is it the bending and warping of a fifth dimensional space time?
Go read, you dumbass.
Educate us. Tell us what it is.
That seems a bit fallacious. Just tell me to go read it.
Yeah, I'll go read it.
How about you just can you expound on what it is? I mean, clearly you know all about it. Can you just give a brief little clip about what it is? Like,
when we find a topic that I don't hear this guy's voice after everybody's statement and within his other people's statement.
Specific gravity, also known as relative density.
I have a topic.
Please,
he's only one holding. He's
You understand, Vax?
that position. So,
Vax, you understand now? Relative density, what they speak about in FED, is also called specific gravity.
so we have to call it specific gravity instead of just saying the common term of relative density.
Specific
Well,
gravity
it's
is
gravity.
Oh my god.
Okay, how about we actually do the topic shift? Commit to it. Right.
But somebody said something about hot gas moving up and the gas gets cold and moves down.
But the conversation is clearly not going anywhere productive.
Right. But if the gas is hot and it's moving up, something has to happen to that gas to change its vector. It doesn't just, oh, I'm cooling off, let me fall. That's not how it works.
That's how it works, bro. No,
So gas just decides to stop moving in its vector and go into a free fall, or does it bounce off of something?
No, it goes down when it gets cold, and it goes up.
Right. So once the gas cools down, it changes its vector without bouncing into anything. So if I have one single if I have one single gas molecule in a perfectly empty vacuum, right, and that one gas molecule's 10 trillion degrees and it's moving up, and as it cools and the temperature on that gas cools down, the gas is going to come to a point where it stops moving and falls. Is that what you're claiming?
No, that's not what I'm claiming.
We're shifting the topic.
Okay.
Yes, okay. What you say?
Okay, yeah. So have the topic that was an elaboration on a question that was asked for me yesterday. Me and Riggs went over it a bunch in like the Lounge VC, but it's essentially the idea of like what are the strategies in order to like propagate truths and propagate ideas that we all have. And there's a couple points on things that I would like push back on, like the common idea of just, talk about flat Earth all the time. Any time where there's, any talk about flat Earth anywhere, that's the good idea. Whereas if I'm thinking about what is the best for individual people to do, there would be a couple concepts to go into that I think are just way more efficacious. In that one, there's a concept called cursed words or cursed phrases, cursed terms, where if you just voluntarily out in the open right away label yourself as a label that they control the meaning of, then you are essentially at the whims of whatever they decide. So if you kind of just instantly bring up like, oh, I'm a flat earther, then everybody is going to take what you say under the guise of what that term has been made to mean based on what, that they, mainstream society, has sort of given that label. And then there's also the concept.
Obvious. Yes, okay. That's pretty. I've been saying that for years. That's quite obvious. Yep.
But you can just call that ether.
A lot of people would disagree. It has nothing to do with ether.
Ether is everything.
Okay.
Let's not do that, bro. What Jasper's saying is, if you start off with a label, then you have to assume all the good and the bad associated with that label. So if you go in with the term flat earther, you already got two presidents denigrating you. You already go in with a limp, shall we say, into the conversation. Yeah. So it is what it is. I mean, Yasuke is absolutely right.
And then there's also the concept of unearned wisdom, in that people will kind of take it of, this is a conspiracy theory that I need to tell everybody about, and hopefully getting as many people in it, and as anybody who will hear me and be willing to sort of say it to them. And in the concept of unearned wisdom is something you would see a lot in like the occult societies or like secret societies and that kind of stuff, to where the general concept of, in order to consider a piece of information and to be able to wield it with a certain level of decorum, you need to have a certain level of sort of baseline. So most people of us who have gotten into flat Earth, it was probably not our first conspiracy theory. And there was probably a lot of different other truths and other things that we understood before we jumped right into, level 10 stuff. It's probably most basic things of, like the media lies to us. Some things can be faked or misrepresented on like smaller scales. And so when you have these, if you don't have these baselines to work off of, one is that people are going to be way less willing to even consider the idea. But then also, even if they do have the information, they don't know how to wield it. So as an example is like when I would be kind of gauging where somebody is at and talking about things when I'm going away from cursed terms. An example that I would give is, you want to talk about things that are fun for people, that allow them to come up with the ideas themselves. The best way to convince somebody of something is to make them think they came up with the idea themselves. So if I'm talking about, before I would ever approach anything about space, I would talk about, Zeppelins. Zeppelins are really cool. People like steampunk. And just imagine, if you were able to drive a Zeppelin to work every day, going into all of the stuff with the Hindenburg. And then, you throw in there that, NASA has a 98% monopoly on the world's helium supply. And that fact alone doesn't set off any triggers, but it gets the person to start thinking about it. It gets the person to start ruminating about it and create all of these other, it lets their imagination flow to where they start to come up with the ideas themselves, and they're way more open to it. And then also, one of the last points is there are a lot of people who are larger creators that I know are definitely one of us in that sense. But nobody would really know that they're one of us unless you are one of us, in the fact that they give a bunch of dog whistles out there. They say a bunch of things. Maybe they write comics and they give a little hint here and there in their comics that kind of shows that they know a little bit more. And the way that works as a topic is that, these people are highly competent people that have trust of people. And so they're not immediately losing their credibility by saying publicly, "Oh, I'm a flat earther."
Before you go, hold on, before you go on too far, man, you said a lot there. You laid out a lot of red yarn.
I was waiting.
No doubt. I tried to get in, but I missed it. I had to get to it. I agree with your first point. You're not going to get a normal person. Your conversion rate on just a normal person from I'm totally normal, doing my job, thinking everything's fine, to flat Earth, your conversion rate for that is going to be minuscule. I was in conspiracies, heavy moon landings, 9/11. Just pick a conspiracy, right? I was in all kinds of stuff for decades before this, and it was still hard for me to get into flat Earth. I flip-flop with it for 6 months. Some normie person running around thinking everything's fine. There's no way. Like very small amount of those people are gonna get it. You're not gonna get a high conversion rate on those people. You got to start them off if you're gonna send me on a quest, you got to start me off with boiling a chicken or something, not slaying the dragon.
Yeah, exactly. You start on very small things that could lead to the logical conclusion, but it doesn't immediately cause that red flag. Or you say things that people would actually want to happen, and they're kind of cool in a sense. So just an example is if you take, people being replaced.
Hold on. Before you go on to this next example, I just want to say you got that line from Inception.
I've never watched Inception.
No, about the best way to make someone have an idea is for them to come up with themselves or something. That sounded like it was straight out of Inception. But go ahead.
It's a very common philosophical phrase that's been around for a while. So Inception definitely could have taken it. But if I were to give, this idea that certain actors are replaced with a different person, a couple examples that would be easy to give that people would actually be way more receptive to is, Michael Jackson, Black Michael Jackson and White Michael Jackson being two different people. Or, Eminem got replaced in 2007. A lot of people who like Eminem would actually like that and think that's cool because they don't like new Eminem as much.
Never heard that one. That's new to me.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's just getting people to consider the ideas in ways that don't immediately cause that electric fence to be set up to where they touch the electric fence, they get shocked, and then they're never willing to go past it. So in that sense, instead of just, oh, I need to tell people the truth, you have to be a little bit more, or have a little bit more discernment on getting the baby steps that go towards the larger truths. And if somebody isn't willing to accept the smaller things, they're not going to even hypothetically accept the larger things.
Baby steps is a good point, right? Because you don't take a baby to running the marathon on day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't expect them to do calculus before they even know how to count to 10. It's just the first principles that you should apply to all subjects. So you can help yourself, is what you're saying, by using sense.
Yeah. And in this sense, kind of the other point that goes into it is that if there are like a large creator that is completely outside of conspiracy spheres, that, you know, they make good content in whatever sphere they're in, and they have a lot of trust, people like them. If they all of a sudden drop a phrase that somebody has only heard, you know, flat earthers say, it would be in a way to where a normal person wouldn't even detect it, and it would just kind of roll off the tongue. But somebody who is, you know, vaguely heard something about flat earth would instantly hear that and be like, wait, what? Does this person like know something that does this person know something about this? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this person is trustworthy, so I'm actually going to take this a little bit more seriously. And that is a very, very valuable tool to go about these things, as opposed to just trying to proselytize in the same way that you would talk about, you know, Jesus as a missionary. Like, there was if anybody wants to go, Montreal.
Well, yeah, but we're going into like missionaries and this and that. Isn't it simple as best, like water, motion, environment, you know, real stuff, physical stuff that people experience every day.
Yeah, this is something that I feel like I'm being gaslit by this community in some ways, and that I don't believe that a single person here has ever flipped from globe to flat, from you know, water measures level, and it's just like, okay, curvature has been falsified, therefore I'm a flat earther. Like, I don't believe that a single person has ever actually flipped because of a singular argument like that. You got to get people to work in their imaginations. Most people here are probably some level of, you know, maybe they watched a documentary, they had something that was a little bit more like emotionally charged in some ways, or, you know, some level of deception, some framing, as opposed to a pure scientific argument of this experiment falsified curvature.
Well, I remember for me, like I was questioning a lot of stuff way before the shape of the earth, shall we say. Time was one of them, space and all that stuff. I was a big geek into that. But I remember the first time I heard about quote unquote flat earth and I saw the water, you know, in the different beakers, the different shaped beakers. That's the first time I've ever considered the shape of what we're on. So to me, that was a big moment. And I was into all kinds of stuff, the Art Bell show, and like way years before anybody even heard the term flat earth.
Yeah, and that's the point, is that you had all of these other this other breadth of knowledge that you could use to contextualize things, and that if there are these other things that have been lied about, then all of a sudden it's on the table for these bigger lies to happen. Whereas if you don't have that fundamental basis of, you know, if everything that they say on the news is real, all of nutritional science is real, all of doctors are correct, you know, medical interventions are all legit, then you don't have a frame of reference to take on that new information of seeing this experiment that falsifies curvature.
Yeah, well, it's all about, like, how should I say it? It's all about, like, when did your Pandora's box open, for example, right? Like, what did it for you, right?
Yeah, and it's usually a straw that broke the camel's back situation.
Kind of like that, yeah, exactly. So for me, it was water. Now, mind you, I was into all kinds of other stuff way before this, right? But I never considered the shape of the earth. Right? Never. It entered my mind like, okay, what's the shape of the earth? Never entered my mind.
Yatsuke, comment on the thing you said about measuring water. If water has been measured, then how come everybody's so eager to do some kind of test where you measure the curvature of water? It's never been done, dude. It's an assumption.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, a lot of people will say, you know, the only thing that matters is that curvature has been falsified in these particular settings. It's not about whether or not, like, that's true or that's been done or anything like that. It's that nobody actually flips off of you know, somebody doing some experiment that doesn't show curvature.
Whoever said there's no measurements of curved water, there's a guy named Stanley, and they took a high-precision GPS tracker, and they drove a car over the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge, and they got kind of XYZ coordinates, and they're able to plot those points in like a CAD software and show the curvature of the Earth by measuring it. So that's a very, and that's something you can do yourself. There's a program on Android, I forget the name of it, but you can get the raw GPS coordinates, and you can confirm for yourself if you have a flat enough long stretch of land that there's indeed curvature.
The simple argument that would be applied here is that nobody ever actually gets raw GPS data, and that there are corrections built into the software. And like there have been examples of this to where you don't actually ever get raw GPS data. There's all of these corrections that go into it. Therefore, it's not super useful to use on its own.
Well, you could check that. You could use known things. So if you have, let's say you have your house, right? You get a ladder, go up on your roof, test that it shows that you're 10 feet in elevation. Things like that. You could test the GPS to see if there's any built-in biases. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say the second argument is cool story, bro.
What do you mean cool stories? It's well documented. I mean, you can go witness it for yourself. There's been multiple people who have confirmed the results as well. I mean, we all agree. I mean, GPS actually counts like a millimeter in precision.
The z-axis isn't the z-axis is not in question though. I mean, if you're talking about up and down, fine. What you're doing is you're extrapolating left to right, down the street or 20 miles away, which could clearly have the corrections cooked in. And actually, the corrections themselves, or even just the data itself, includes an error that's larger than what the curve would even be in the first place. So,
I'm not sure.
The variability in GPS is greater than even the amount of curve that we're looking for.
So you could just claim that based on an optical measurement, but
it's not an optical measurement.
It's optical.
It's a GPS measurement.
This is another one of their like conversational hijacking tactics, where like people are in the middle of trying to progress a conversation about something.
He just said that
one argument about the globe.
He literally just said there's no measurements of flat water in quotes, and there's a very famous one in the community.
With all due respect, it isn't super relevant to the point at hand that I was bringing up to bring it to like a specific example of just arguing about something that is or isn't relevant to the point.
What are you guys talking about? You have the New Bedford level that measures flat to over 6 miles. That's an actual datum. And that Lake Pontchartrain, you're in an automobile, so you're measuring the road, not the water.